I was 4 years old. As I recall, it was in the summer or the fall. I have been having difficulty breathing, and in the evening I was taken to the emergency room by my mother and father. This wasn't unusual. I averaged a trip to the hospital at least once every 2 weeks. On one occasion, I distinctly remember listening to a doctor advising my parents to stop caring for me and to let me die, telling them that I was not worth taking care of due to the extremeness of my asthma, and I would be dead by the time I was 9. Anyway, I was laying on the examination table. My parents were to the left of me. The door to the room was closed, and I was in extreme pain. Every breath felt like burning razors were tearing through my lungs and throat. I don't remember the moment I stopped breathing, only all the pain stopped, and I found myself in a vast place. The air, if you could call it that, was filled with an unearthly white light. The place seemed to expand for all eternity. I do remember a being of light. It was God, and he was standing near me. He was looming over me like a great tower of strength, yet radiating only warmth and love. His first words sent a shock through me.
Bobby, I'm sorry for the pain this meeting will cause you. When I created the universe, I put rules and limitations in place. Every time you come here, it changes you, because this is your second time here. You will remember more than you're supposed to, and it will cause you more pain than you know. You will suffer as no one in your family ever has, and I can't change that.
As those words were spoken, if that's what you call them, I caught a glimpse of my life, and I felt pride, love, joy, and sadness. It was all pouring into me. Each of the images was of me, but from a standpoint of a being standing with me or looking on. I remember the conversation going on for an eternity, but in reality, it only lasted a minute or two at the most. I remember a white light that seemed to pulsate an understanding that was some kind of extension of God. It stored the moments of every moment and life. It allowed a mortal to experience them. If I was to label this, I would call it the Book of Fate, that contains all that has, is, and will be. Somehow I felt the light of God from that device, and God merged to become one with me. I saw my life, all 128 years of it. I saw my mother die, and me being unable to do anything about it as I had moved away. I saw my sister struggling with depression, and worse due to a rape she experienced in her mid-20s. I saw my father die a few years after my mother. I saw my home I built for my family. It was in a place halfway across the country. This home was far away from my home. I also experienced the final moments of my mortal life. I was in a bed, and I don't know where. My children and grandchildren were there with me. I remember thinking, it's finally done. I remember feeling a horrible wave of sadness rip through me as I thought of my daughter who had died before me, and I remembered thinking of my wife. Now, keep in mind, I was 4 years old while experiencing the life experiences of a 128-year-old man. I remember the night we were married. The room was dimly lit, and she was standing in front of me, getting undressed. I remember seeing a strand of gray in her hair, and then looking back at that moment, realizing in that moment I had been reborn and everything was worth it. Then I realized I'd be able to see her and my daughter again, and give into death for the final time. That wasn't the end though. I was shown the consequences of my life. Thousands of people that I had interacted with and felt what they felt about me, saw their life and how I impacted them. Next, I saw the consequences of my life and the influence of my action. I saw people reading my books, teaching lessons to children that I had taught them. I remember waking up confused and trying to deal with everything. For a long time afterwards, I struggled to deal with what I saw. Every time my mom got sick, I wondered if it was her time to die. I tried to always be strong, and in time eventually come to blame myself for my mother's oncoming death and my sister's oncoming heir. I couldn't deal with the things that I had experienced, and it took nearly 29 years after this before I could begin to stop blaming myself and accept that I had nothing to do with those things. At the time of this writing, my sister was years ago. She got pregnant, and then she had a miscarriage. My mom had Alzheimer's and stage 7 dementia, and she's not expected to last another year. She entered the final stage about the same time I signed up to teach for America and ended up about halfway across the country. My father is preparing for my mother's death and working on finding his final home before it's his turn to die. As for me, well, I've been teaching for about 14 years, and I've worked with nearly 10,000 children. I've also begun to write a book and the occasional article. I now live halfway across the country and have begun to consider dating. Thank you for your story, Bobby. As you guys might have noticed, I had to kind of reverse a couple of words. If you can't figure it out, I'm sorry, but it's just staying within the YouTube guidelines. Other than that, be sure to like the video and leave a comment. I hope you enjoyed. Hey, and while you're at it, live long and live strong.